Welcome to the Work Well podcast. I'm Dulcie, and I'm here with my best friend of over 20 years, Yemisi.
20 years? Wow. And in that time, we've seen it all professionally. From big wins to epic fails, we've learned so much along the way about life, work, and everything in between.
We don't believe in gatekeeping, so we want to share these lessons with you. We've created this space to explore the challenges we all face, whether it's finding balance, building confidence, or even stepping into leadership.
You'll get stories, advice, and practical tools to help you feel inspired, informed, and excited to tackle whatever comes next.
So, take a deep breath, settle in, and let's dive into today's conversation. Hello. How are you?
Hello. I am very well, my darling. And how are you?
I'm good. I say that. You know that it's an automatic thing, isn't it? Just to say, oh yeah, I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, I'll be honest. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about resilience. It feels so incredibly pertinent for me at the moment. So, yeah, I am good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, 24 hours ago, not so much. So yeah, definitely in my bounce back today. So yeah, looking forward to talking about this one a bit more. And I think that's what this is all about, really, isn't it? When we do these podcasts, we're not sitting on our thrones telling everybody what they should or shouldn't do. We are very much in this with you.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it'd be great, to hear from everyone listening who this resonates with, like how you're getting on with resilience, how you're getting on with any other topic we talk about. So yeah, do talk to us. So what did we talk about last time? We talked about perfectionism. We talked about letting go of it, gaining control over those tendencies, and embracing imperfection, and to recognize that, things don't always go to plan, and that's okay. But sometimes life will throw things at us that we didn't expect. And it's all well and good that we've let go of our perfection, but sometimes the proverbial will hit the fan. So that's where resilience comes in. And if we think about a definition, it's the ability to adapt, recover, and importantly, grow in the face of challenges. So I like to think about it in two ways. There's bouncing back, there's recovering after a setback, but there's also bouncing forward, which is using challenges as an opportunity for growth. It's not about avoiding bad things or avoiding difficulty. It's about how to navigate that effectively, and how to build the emotional strength, keep going when things haven't gone as planned. What's your relationship with resilience like, Emmy?
So for me, I've been on my history with resilience is one in which I've always been the type of person who things naturally came easy to. Anything I set my mind to, typically I was able to do. I wasn't really well versed in failure until later in life. And when I had my first big taste of failure, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I slipped into this massive depressive spiral.
Yeah.
And it took me, you remember that time, right?
Yeah.
And it took me ages to get out of it. And over the years, I spent the last few years or so, having this yo-yo dieting. Like one day you're up, next day, that's me with resilience. One day I feel like, yes, I've got this done, I can cope. The next day or the next time, some life-changing event happens, and I realized actually the systems I had set up before are just crumbling before my very eyes.
Right.
And I think the real work with resilience for me really started at the beginning of this year, where I wanted to be. This year was very interesting for me in many ways. There are a lot of things I wanted to do this year, but the biggest thing for me was just being intentional about me. Because I have a history of running from like when things start to get overwhelming, I shut down completely. I become so insular and insulated and isolated. And I used to use the excuse of being an introvert, right? To like excuse that. No, being an introvert is not about running away from things or cutting yourself up from it. Introversion is not isolation. And I used to conflate the two. And what I started learning was it's about where I get my energy from as opposed to about how I deal with problems or setbacks in life. And so one thing I will say with my experience is resilience starts with self-love and self-care. That's the thing. I don't know. I think it was it Atomic Habits, James Clear, who said something around like people default when the going gets tough, people default to their systems or something like that.
Yeah.
And if your systems are not rooted in self-love and self-care, that's when resilience becomes very tricky for you. So there's a work that needs to happen first, and that is with you. And so for me, I started realizing that, you know how like you have those pill boxes like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I've got pill boxes for my mental health, like, and for my physical health, and you know, all those things. I have lots of different tools that help me maintain my sanity, and they're habits for me. You know, I cultivate a habit of having those tools because for me, I've realized that it's not a matter of a want, it's a need. I need to do these things. Experience has taught me that doing these things on a consistent basis helps me build up those systems so that when the proverbial hits the fan, I have those systems are able to bear the weight of the disappointment or the weight of the setback and so that's something that has definitely been more apparent to me this year. And so I said all of that to say is that I feel like I'm in a much better place now in terms of resilience because there've been a few things that have happened and I haven't reacted in the old way I would have reacted.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. I think for me, resilience is something I struggle with because I think I'm perceived as being a lot more resilient than I feel. I think there's always, for me, a lot of people around me see me as strong and tough and just, she keeps going. But actually, I don't think I've necessarily, like outwardly, yeah, I do keep going. You know how like J-Lo goes through a whole lot of stuff like relationships and whatever, but you've never seen her look like what she's going through. Not one day. It's actually become a bit of a meme that J-Lo can be going through the worst, messiest breakup or divorce or whatever, but she always looks completely spot on.
Yeah.
So not necessarily like the looks, but the outward appearance. I think I do a bit of that, right? Like the closest people know what's really going on, but in general, people wouldn't know what's really happening. And that I think goes back to what we were talking about in the last episode around like perfectionism and all those other things and some of those childhood, things that are implanted early. But I think sometimes I can appear resilient, but how I feel isn't that. And like the last few years, I'll be honest, the last decade has been tough. Stuff happening within the family and work and things it's compounded. And every time something would happen, things that felt world crushing. When that started, the first thing, which I don't really want to talk about, but you know what I'm talking about. I felt like my world shattered into a million pieces. And I'll be very honest to say it's now 10 years on and things haven't come back. Nothing has ever quite been the same. But in that period, I have been promoted several times. I've gone from one company to another and moved further and further up in leadership and, have done well from a professional standpoint. But there's just been a number of things along the way that have hit me. And it looks like I keep going, but honestly, the damage I've never fully recovered. And it's now having taken a good break, and I really needed it to just that I am actually starting to feel genuinely resilient. I feel like I'm building those muscles, and it's not just the appearance, but actually in myself. So I suppose it's a very convoluted way of saying, I talked at the beginning about resilience. There's a sort of dual nature to it, bouncing back and bouncing forwards.
Yes.
I think I've bounced forwards. I haven't always bounced back.
Yeah.
Like I keep moving forwards and I keep doing things and seemingly growing, but inside myself, I hadn't, I think I'm getting there now. I'm moving towards it now. I hadn't really recovered myself. So that just, you know, to be very open and honest with everybody, this is a funny topic. So yeah, there's a lot of myths around resilience. And I think I'll be honest to say I probably have held a bulk of these myths in my own mind. And it's been doing the work over the last sort of year or so that has started to demystify this stuff. So I'm going to talk through some of those, and it'd be good to hear what you think about them. So the first myth about resilience is that resilient people are born, not made. That some people just are resilient, you know, and some people just aren't. But honestly, that isn't true. It's not an inherent trait. It is something that, you know, in that magical word that you said earlier on, intention, that when people are intentional and practice resilience, you can develop that skill.
Oh, okay. You just said a word that has been kind of hovering in my mind over the past 24 hours. Practice. I read something. I think, I subscribed to James Clear's newsletter, and I think either it was a quote from him or he was quoting somebody else talking about you get better at what you practice. And he was like, practice isn't just about practicing an instrument or practicing. Like, practice is what do you do on the regular? And are you practicing to learn how to regulate your emotions by actually naming them and bringing them out and addressing them? Or are you practicing being angry on social media? Like, whatever you do consistently, that's what you're going to get better at doing. And
good or bad. Wow.
Yeah, that was deep. I was like, And so it also goes back to the whole systems thing, is that, you know, if you're not born resilient, if resilience comes with practice, how can you think about practice? What are the little steps you can do to actually flex that resilience muscle so that it's stronger?
Absolutely. Another myth is that resilience means that you're always strong. I definitely have held that belief.
Yeah.
But actually what's the truth is that resilience involves acknowledging vulnerability and looking for help.
Yes.
Even failing. Like, these things aren't mutually exclusive from being resilient. So yeah, it's not about being strong or being perfect all the time.
Agreed. Especially about the asking for help bit. And that's something I've had to learn the hard way this year or the last couple of years actually, is it's okay to ask for help. And in fact, it's necessary to ask. No one's an island. Yeah. But I've always kind of taken pride in my independence and my, you know, my kind of leave it with me kind of thing. And maybe it's a first daughter thing. I don't know. Maybe it's I don't know the underlying roots of it, but usually I'm like, I'm the person people go to for help. I'm not the one who asks for help typically. And I've had to learn that actually that's a very, very, very unhealthy way of living. And everyone needs help at some point or another. And asking for help and needing help, it doesn't make you less than. It doesn't reduce you in any way. In fact, it will. That's where your growth is going to come from. That's where your muscle, your resilience muscle is going to be flexed in the process of you asking for that help and support. So yeah.
Yeah. And that goes on to the next myth, which is that resilience is done alone. It's not.
We're in sync today, Dulcie.
We're in sync. Bye.
Bye. There was no way I was going to finish that.
I'm sorry, but like, NSYNC, one of the best boy bands ever.
Wait, I want to go that far. I mean, okay, one of the best, you said. Okay, because for me, okay, one of the best. Backstreet Boys are unmatched. Backstreet Boys. Backstreet Boys.
That one song. They hate with that one song.
There are so many. Let's not start fighting now. We still are best friends of 20 years. Let's not give our enemies cause to rejoice over us.
All right. Okay, well. NSYNC is better than Backstreet Boys. Okay, so yeah, resilience is not done alone. It is dependent on connection with other people, whether that's friends and family or even professional support. Another myth, resilience means that you don't feel pain, you don't struggle. That's obviously nonsense. It doesn't eliminate pain or experiencing difficulty. It's really, like I said in the intro, it's about navigating that and managing those emotions effectively, not avoiding them.
Yeah, like, see, a good sailor, what's the difference between a good sailor and a bad sailor? It's not the absence of storms.
No.
It's what they do in those storms. And so it's not the absence of issues. It's not the absence of problems. It's not the absence of pain. It's not the absence of weakness or vulnerability. It's not the absence of any of those things. It's how, like you said, how you navigate that. And when you use that word navigate, I just thought immediately of a sailor. I don't know any sea shanties. Do you know any sea shanties? But yeah, next time you're going through a storm of life, try singing a sea shanty. See how that helps. Anyway, that's just my little intrusive thought thing going on. Carry on.
I can't tell you how much I loved that intrusive thought. That is bloody fantastic.
I have a lot of them, and they usually have to do with either songs or like weird metaphors.
And you've got both of them in one there.
There we go.
Love.
Tick, tick.
Another myth then, resilience is only needed in a crisis.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
Right? Like that, we think of resilience, and I've said it even today, I've said it, haven't I? When I can swear, this is our podcast, when the shit hits the fan. Actually, no, not every time when the shit hits the fan. Sometimes the fan is clean. There's nothing on it. But we're still resilient. It's as much about dealing with everyday stress and challenges as it is with the big stuff. And something you said earlier on really resonated with me around how you have your pill box.
Yes.
Because that's exactly what this point is, right? You have those levers that you pull so that when things do happen, they can bear the load.
Yeah.
I thought that was just an incredible expression of this point of like, you know yourself, and you've done that work of understanding yourself and where the pressure points can arise and what you need to do to relieve that pressure, so that when things happen, because in life things happen, you already have systems in place to deal with it. So I think that's absolutely amazing. It's really inspirational.
Thank you, darling. And part of that is also your environment. Okay. Yeah. That's another thing. There's no amount of pills you can pop if your environment does not, if your environment is taking more out of you than what the pills are doing. I cannot state this enough. And by environment, I just don't mean your physical space, also relationships. Those toxic relationships that drain the life out of you, you need to start, there's a lot of re-evaluation and resetting of boundaries. And so all of that stuff is part of it as well. It's not just the things that you do, but also the things that you don't allow as much as anything. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then the last myth is that resilient people can just keep going without rest or recovery. This is something that I've been guilty of. Just been like, keep going. Come on, do it. Just keep going.
That's the road to burn out and never breakdowns. And I've had those.
Me too. So like, you know what, honestly, we have both had to learn this stuff the hardest of ways.
The hardest of ways.
The very hardest of ways. More of which to come later in the series. But yeah, you have to rest is critical. I think at some point we probably should just do an episode on rest. You know how I feel about rest.
Look, I need to read that book as well, actually, because rest is my jam right about now. I'm learning about rest, and I need to be more intentional about resting. So, yes,
I can't lie. Secret fantasy is I'd like to be a rest coach and just help people rest. You know the different types of rest. Anyway, we will talk about this more when we do a rest episode. But I've become passionate about the subject of rest.
Look, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I'll be your first client.
Okay. But yeah, rest is critical when it comes to resilience. You have to let your mind and your body recover and rebuild when they've been stressed. So yeah, you can't just keep going. You are not the Terminator. You've got to take a break. So why does resilience even matter? It feels like a bit of a silly question, but it's worth calling it out, right? Resilience is so important for things like your mental health. Being resilient and training up your resilience muscles will help you reduce stress, reduce anxiety, lessen the chances of depression. And these things matter. If you're thinking about it from why can't I speak today? If you're thinking about it from a professional perspective, being more resilient enables you to, have perspective on an issue, be able to look at problems and challenges and have, different perspectives. What am I saying? Having better problem solving skills and being able to adapt at work. I'm sure we all have examples of when a curveball has been thrown at us. And actually being someone who is regularly practicing resilience and it's habitual with you will mean that you can just adapt a bit more to when the unexpected inevitably happens. And just a little caveat here, right? Adapt to it when the unexpected happens. It does not excuse toxic work environments. Oh, yes, absolutely.
Because a toxic work environment will gaslight you about adaptability, whereas it's their own dysfunction that is causing the issue. So just be clear on the root cause of that uncertainty.
Oh, my God.
Well.
That's a great point. Such a great point. Oh, yeah. Preach. The way I feel like I'm going to wear out the word resonate. But I felt that like in my uterus. That landed.
Yeah. See. I mean, that's a whole episode.
That is an episode. Ooh. Okay, I'm going to take a deep breath and move on. Resilience will also
Write to us. Send us your stories.
Tell us your stories. Tell us. It's a safe space. We won't tell anybody.
We cannot be alone in this.
We can't. If you can't bitch and moan to anyone, you can bitch and moan to us.
Yes.
Right. Send us an email, dilemma@thisisworkwell.com. I'm not even joking. There's an email address for that. Please, if you want us to help you with any of the challenges that you're facing, or if you just want to rant and you need a safe space to do that, send it to us, dilemma@thisisworkwell.com, and we will do everything we can to help you. Resilience. So just broadly, not just with work, but when you are more resilient, and again, it's this practice thing, right? When you are intentionally practicing resilience, your general emotional well-being will just be better because you'll have more confidence in how you handle the challenges that life will throw at you.
Yeah.
But it can be a bit of a double-edged sword. And I think this is what I've experienced where, and you see this a lot with minorities, this kind of expectation of you being resilient and being strong. We talked about this, I think it was last episode when we talked about the tropes that some of us face.
Strong black woman
is one here, right? Where it is assumed, like I've definitely experienced that, where the assumption is that I am strong, I can cope with it, I'm okay. And this isn't just people like at work, it's friends, it's family, and that whatever's going on, I can handle that. And then I've lived up to it by just handling stuff. But inside, I've been falling to pieces and I have been doing things in isolation and not reaching out and, asking for the help and support that I need. And that's definitely got better. Like I'm speaking to someone right now who has been instrumental in helping me just feel like myself, and helping me walk through some of the darker times of life. So it's important while we talk about being resilient that you really remember what we're saying here. It's not about being bulletproof. It's not about being isolated. You're doing this in community with others. And I'll talk about that in a minute a bit more, but you are a human being and you have feelings and your feelings are valid. You're not made of stone.
No.
So practice resilience, yes, but you're not Superwoman.
The dark side of that whole strong Black woman thing, we see it with like Black maternal health, don't we?
Yes.
And there's some stereotypes that are harmless, and there's some stereotypes that are just downright fatal.
Yep.
And this is one of those things for me. I cannot count how many stories I've read of Black women needlessly dying because of this very dangerous, very terrible stereotype and myth. And so please, you are allowed to be vulnerable. You should be vulnerable when you need to be vulnerable. And especially in a situation where your health is at risk, please.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That's such an incredible and poignant point. Okay, so we're going to talk now a little bit about building resilience and what's almost a toolkit, things to sort of think about when wanting to start growing resilience. The first thing, as almost everything requires this, is a bit of reflection. Think back, gain awareness, think back on past challenges that you have overcome and how did you do it? Look at what were the patterns? What have I identified about myself? And what does that mean for me moving forward? What might I want to do more of, right? To ensure that I'm ready, stay ready, you don't have to get ready. So make sure you write those down. Honestly, we should do some merch, like notebooks or something, because a lot of what we talk about is work that we all have to do individually, right?
Yes.
And it's so easy, I think, to listen to good advice and then move on to the next podcast about Real Housewives if you're anything like me.
Yeah.
And some of what we say, or a lot of what we say, is forgotten. But actually, when you reinforce what you've heard by putting pen to paper, and look, even if you haven't got that, open up your notes app if you've got your phone nearby. It's better than nothing. But try and make notes, write, capture. It just reinforces reinforces the things that you're learning, and it sets in motion the changes that you want to make for yourself.
And if you're like me and you have maybe a slightly skewed perception of yourself, I tend to perceive myself not as favorably as other people perceive me. And so I have a tendency to underplay my reactions to things, or, underplay things. You can ask someone. You can ask a very close, trusted person and say, okay, this situation happened. How do you think I reacted? And that can also help give perspective to your point. So maybe something that you have thought as, I didn't really do anything. But when you ask someone, they say, actually, yeah, you really were. I was so surprised. Sometimes it takes asking someone else that is close to you, that you trust and to be able to tease that out. So don't get discouraged if you're sitting in front of that blank page going, I'm not sure about this. Ask someone.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's such a good build, because you're right. Sometimes you don't see it. And especially people like you, like me, who, we do downplay ourselves. We do, not necessarily appreciate everything that we do ourselves. But other people can let you know, no. You killed that. You were this is a thing you did, and you did it this way, and it was great, and just to help you get some external perspective on yourself. That's fantastic. The next thing is about adopting a growth mindset. So there will be a future episode where we really go into mindset and the differences between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. Chances are you've already heard about it, but here I suppose at its core, when we're talking about adopting a growth mindset, we're really trying to say about how you frame things, how you reframe failure as opportunity for growth and for learning and to move forward. And, how you don't see, oh, well, this is my talent or my intelligence level and this is it, it's static. Actually, no, I can learn more. I can pick up new things. Things can change. So adopting a growth mindset is really key in becoming a resilient person, because if everything is fixed and then something unexpected happens, everything can just be shattered and you're like, well, I'm done for. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
We've talked a bit about this, but another one is your social connections. So, really strengthen those. If you are lucky enough to have a supportive network of friends and family or mentors, lean on them. We're not trying to overload anyone or get any one or two people to carry all of our stuff and dumping on people. No.
Mm-hmm.
But lean on your support network, and it's a two-way street. Also, be of support to others.
Yeah.
Strengthen those connections so that when you are going through any of life's stresses, you can be open with them in asking for support. And sometimes it can be a little bit, especially if you, like us, don't typically ask for help, it can be you feel a bit like weak or exposed.
Yeah.
As soon as you've done it, again, providing you're not friends with an absolute dick, you feel so good.
Yeah.
And it can change everything. And you start feeling yourself more, because you're just like, oh, I can do this, because you're hearing these positive messages being reinforced from the people that love you the most. So lean on your people. Now, I know that is a massive privilege.
Yeah.
And not everybody has that support network. So if that's where you are, like we've already said, get in touch with us, right? If you are struggling and you just need a bit of like help, do send us an email or get in touch with us on social media.
Yeah.
But really look at, are there any like former friends who life happens, people move, things happen, we lose touch, but there wasn't a problem. Are there people that maybe let's reach out, reconnect with them? Are there people that are worth reconnecting with? Are there local groups that you can join? Are there local communities that you can join? Volunteering is always a really good way as well of like reaching out and also getting perspective. When I moved to a new city just over a decade ago, I volunteered at a charity shop, and it was probably one of the best things I did in terms of helping me feel grounded within my community. Being part of a community. I say that when really the biggest thing was that there was this homeless guy that would often try and steal, and we had a game of cat and mouse every week, which I loved, to be honest with you. Like if he'd managed to like grab a pair of jeans, he'd wiggle them outside the window and laugh at me and run off. But then I'd see him on my way home and he'd like wish me a good evening and stuff. It was a funny little time. It was either that or me hanging out with my follow volunteers, which are just a wonderful, effervescent bunch of retired women in their 60s and 70s and 80s. And they were a blast, because honestly, they don't care at all at that point. So yeah, loved that. But honestly, it just helped me feel so grounded in a new place, and it got rid of so much of the anxiety of newness. And like I made friends of my own age through work and other social events, but having that it helped me feel like I was part of something bigger than myself.
Yeah.
And always knowing I've got this place that I go to, I've got these people that I see in a time when I didn't have any of my close friends around me, really did help me not feel so small and so lonely. So definitely work on what social connections you have or want to reconnect or want to create.
So on that volunteering note, I cannot emphasize the power of volunteering enough. Like you said, Dulcie, it makes you feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself. It gives you a sense of purpose. And you are making an impact as well, which will help your sense of how you see yourself as well, because you start to also see yourself through the eyes of the people that you're helping, and that's always a good boost for self-esteem. I am what you would call a reluctant volunteer, because if you're like me, a busy mom, maybe with a partner, demanding job, like time is not something that you hear the word time and you start to laugh like me, because like time is not something that you really have to spare.
Yeah.
But I would say it's well worth it. I am the governor of a primary school, recently chair of governors, and I was voluntold I was ambushed by my vicar and my husband and voluntold. But even though I went into it reluctantly, the reluctance was more about having the time to commit to it rather than, wanting to help out. time is worth more than money because you can never use money to buy time, right? So that is the most precious gifts you can give. You can actually give what? An hour a week, an hour every 2 weeks, an hour a month. Like every little helps. Definitely volunteering, Dulcie, like you said, is a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. It's wonderful. So the next one, we've talked about it before when we talked about perfectionism. It's mindfulness, right? And incorporating mindfulness practices into your daily life can really just help with things like resilience. We gave some pointers last time. There are like apps that I'm sure we've all heard of, like Calm and Headspace, that you can use to practice that and meditation and whatnot. But there are loads of like free resources on things like YouTube. You can do your Googles, you'll see lots of things like that. But I thought we could actually just do one right now, a little grounding exercise. Yeah. Okay. So this is more so when you're feeling a bit of stress or anxiety, you just need to like calm down and settle a little bit. So I'm not going to put you on the spot, Yemi, and make you say any of these things, but I will just read them out. But it's worth doing them as we go, right?
No, I don't have shame. I'll say it.
Okay. So this is called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding exercise.
Let's go. I love numbers.
Okay. So the first thing you're going to do is name 5 things that you can see.
I can see the French knitted sign I made recently, shaped into the word joy. I can see the coloring page my daughter and I did. I can see another coloring page with a inspirational quote on it. I can see a picture of a photo booth picture of myself and some old teacher friends. And I can see a picture of Malcolm X because I have it on my wall.
Good. So those are 5 things you can see. Now, can you name 4 things that you can touch?
I can touch the purple and lilac and white roses I have in a nice little vase. I can touch my wonderful mug that was a gift from a very good teacher friend of mine who coincidentally is in the picture that I'm looking at. I can touch this wonderful Jamaican mango and lime island oil, moringa seed oil, and manuka honey. That's how many things have I touched? I've lost count. I said I like numbers. 3 things I've mentioned.
One more.
I've mentioned one more thing. I can touch my tablet. Okay, so my tablet is very important to me because this is where I do my drawing.
Wonderful. So name 3 things that you can hear.
I can hear the steady hum of my desktop computer. The fans are going in there. I can hear the sound of my voice. Yeah, and yeah. That's the only 2 things I can really hear at the moment. Because we're recording this, I made sure to be in the quiet place.
Okay, fine.
That's all I've got.
Well, again, if you can hear 3 things, fine. 2 is absolutely okay. 2 things that you can smell.
I can smell the tuna from my tuna sandwich I just had. I can smell the lime so I've got a little hot water and lime concoction here, and I can smell the lime from that.
Okay. And then 1 thing that you can taste.
Can I use the same thing though?
You might have to.
Okay, another thing I can smell is a perfume that I recently bought. Yeah. And then I can taste. The 1 thing I can taste is the lime in my lime and lemon concoction.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Well, there we go. So that is a little grounding exercise that you can do anytime, anywhere you are. You can just think through those things to yourself. And it doesn't matter if you can't get all the things, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What it really does, all it does is just bring you back into yourself. bring you back into your senses and ground you in a time and a place. Because sometimes when we get so overwhelmed with things, our thoughts are running a mile a minute and everything feels like it's piling on top of us. But actually, we just need a second to remember, oh, here I am. This is where I am. This is when I am. This is what's going on around me. Okay, let me now move forward with a bit of sanity restored.
That was fantastic. That felt really good.
Good.
That felt really good. Should I do you? Let's do
No.
I know, girl. We're on a strict schedule.
Let's keep it moving. Like my late great hit, let's keep it pushing, or whatever Kiki said.
Said the no. I've had many no's from you in 20 years, and that no, I know that no very well. It was like no.
Okay, so again, we talked about this a lot more in perfectionism. We talked about different techniques to do it, but set realistic goals. That's so important here when we talk about resilience. Well, don't overwhelm yourself. Make sure that you can actually make progress and that you're building momentum. Celebrate when you hit milestones. It doesn't matter how small the is. Celebrate it.
If you only wait to celebrate big things, you will be miserable. Celebrate your progress, not perfection.
Absolutely. Take care of your body. You know, when we deal with knockbacks, a lot of things fall to the wayside. Our eating, our exercise, sleep, all that stuff tends to go on the back burner. But then we're in a vicious cycle because if we're not sleeping enough, and there's a fantastic book by, I've forgotten the name, Matthew something, I'll put it in the show notes about sleep. It's a bit scary because you're like, gosh, not sleeping well or enough can actually take years off your life. But honestly, bad nutrition, lack of exercise, poor sleep, these things make us feel even worse, make us even less resilient, even more impact on our emotional resilience and well-being. And it goes from bad to worse to even worse, right? So as hard as it is, even if it's in just really small ways, look after yourself, look after your body. It's the only one you've got. So you can get another job, you can't get another body. Okay. Look after it. You can get another husband, you can't get another body.
There you go. She said it, guys.
Look after your body.
See.
Okay? And then finally, again, we talked about this and it's true for everything we discuss. Get help. If you need professional help, get it. There's no shame in it.
Absolutely
therapy
not.
is for your mind as a gym is for your body. Like I've done therapy once and it was really hard to get into. I found it a bit of a struggle initially, but it gave me some really good tools to move forward. And I really am keen to find another therapist and get back into it. Right. And we've already say how it can be life-changing, right? So don't be ashamed, don't be afraid, ask for help.
Therapy actually got me through one of the darkest points of my life. One of the darkest.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so much the act of talking to that therapist. It was more about that was the time I had to actually, that was the only real time I had for myself. Right? The rest of my time was busy taking care of this helpless human being, my baby, taking care of this, that, and the other, trying to, balance work. Like, I didn't have time for myself. So therapy was actually the space, and it gave me space to just actually think about me and for someone to ask me, how are you doing? Just having that time and space on a regular basis, when I knew for a fact it will be just about me, was so helpful. So helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because again, it's so often that when we're looking after others, we don't look after ourselves. And actually therapy is like the ultimate form of self-care.
Yes.
You're allowing yourself space to tend to yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. Brilliant. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I think that's us for today on the topic of resilience. So resilience, as we've said, isn't just about bouncing back. It's about using the challenges life throws at us to grow and to move forward. And it's a skill that you can build step by step, day by day.
That is absolutely right, Dulcie. And this week, we'd like you to think about the one challenge you've overcome and what it taught you. Reflect on how that experience shaped you and how you can use it to move forward.
Absolutely. So, thank you for joining us today on the Work Well podcast. If you found this episode helpful, we'd love for you to subscribe so that you never miss another episode. And while you're there, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star rating or review. It would mean so much to us, and it helps other people discover the show.
Yes, you can also connect with us on social media. We are at This Is Work Well on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And we'd love to hear how you're building resilience in your own life. Talk to us. We want to hear from you.
So looking ahead, next time we're going to be talking about burnout.
Oh, Lord, my old enemy.
I'm still somewhat singed on the edges here.
See that.
So we're going to talk about what it is, how to recognize it in yourself and in others, and most importantly, how to break that cycle. You don't want to miss that conversation. Until next time, take care and keep working well.
Bye.